What's the strangest date you've ever been on? It's 2001. So VHS and chill at this girl's dorm room. My first time over there. And there is this giant bear on the bed. Like. Got the softball in the milk jug at the carnival first tier bear. It occupies 50% of the surface area. I say whoa. How'd you score that bear? Her. I don't know. Me. What? Her. I don't know. A few minutes go by. Me. You don't know? Her. Yeah. Me. Okay. Look. It's okay if it's from an ex. I don't care if you stole it. I'll believe almost anything you tell me at this point. But there is no way in hell you're going to tell me you don't know where that giant bear is from. I had a stuffed dinosaur one stroke for that size that I got when I was 6 and I could tell you every detail about how I got it. Her. Well, good for you. But I don't know how I got it. Are you going to be able to let this go? Me. Looks at bear. Bear stares back. Eyes full of secrets. I don't think I can. Walk out. Well, this one time I took my date to dinner at what seemed to be a front for some type of illicit activity. We had just moved to a new area and we wanted to check out the local shops and restaurants. While we were wandering, we stumbled into a tiny Italian place. Back home, a small hole in the wall restaurants always have the best food, so we were excited to give it a shot. Big curtains were covering the entry windows, so we had no idea what was inside until we trudged through the door. Inside, we were met with emptiness and silence. We both immediately thought the store was closed, and I spun around and searched for the store hours posted somewhere on the door. While I was looking, we heard a heavy thud as a young woman barked, "I'll be right with you." She appeared, greeted us confusingly, and asked us what she could do for us. Which, looking back, is probably a red flag. But we were naive and hungry, so we said we were there for dinner. She looked puzzled, but motioned us to follow her to a booth right by the entrance. She then disappeared into the back, and we heard a muffled conversation between our hostess and a man. The consensus was basically they were not prepared for us, or didn't know how to proceed. I asked my date if she wanted to split, but she insisted we stay for the story. The square-shaped balding man burst through the kitchen door with 2 glasses of water for us, and in a very loud and deep voice he explained that it was his birthday, and we would eat what he felt like making us. We wholeheartedly agreed. We waited around 30 minutes, and he again returned with 3 large bowls of spaghetti and meat sauce. He placed 2 bowls in front of us, and 1 next to me for himself. He sat with us and ate. We had light and awkward conversation with him during, and he kept asking us jokingly if we were cops or with the health board. He was incredibly nervous about us, so my date kept cracking corny puns or awful jokes because he would forcibly laugh at anything designed with humor. We talked about our lives, the cities we've lived in, our pets. He had a teacup chihuahua named Princess, and his wife. He decided we were good people, and didn't change us for the meal. We wished him a happy birthday. He hugged us, and we went on our way. Easily the best spaghetti I've ever had in my life. The restaurant, unfortunately, no longer exists. Had a good friend in uni who disappeared overseas for a year after we graduated. I stayed there to study and teach, and one day I got a text from a number I didn't recognize saying, "Hey, it's Joe from business school. Want to catch up for a coffee?" Hadn't seen him in ages, so I said yes very enthusiastically. I walked into the coffee shop at the right time. Look around for Joe, and there's Joe from business school. A different Joe from business school. I couldn't walk out because he'd already seen me. So we chatted politely for an hour and we've never talked since. I was a waitress and I had a table of 2 guys. One was very cute and flirting with me and we exchanged numbers. He asked me out and I said yes. I didn't really go out much and he didn't tell me where we were going out, what we were doing. He, being young and dumb at the time, thought that would be exciting. So he drives me a pretty good way from my house and we go to an elementary school. I was really confused. Apparently he was a basketball coach and I had a game that night. So at this point I notice I have no reception on my phone and I really wanted to leave, but I thought maybe we were going somewhere fun afterwards, so I gave up trying to call someone to rescue me. I sat and watched this game right next to this dude's mom. Yeah, this was going well. Finally the game ended and we go to get in the car and his friend from the restaurant gets in the front seat, making me sit in the back. I am super uncomfortable with this and I ask what's going on. They basically tell me they want to run a train on me. Nope. Duck that. Take me home now. I got lucky. They moped and took me home. I was terrified. That was horrible. Matched on Tinder with a guy who decided that a great story to tell in detail on our date was about the time he fisted a lady and tore her up so bad inside that she was bleeding profusely and had to go to the hospital to get stitches. After he was done telling the story, he told me he was glad I told him I was super squeamish, because now he wouldn't try to show me pictures of all the blood he had saved on his phone. He also said he had been on well over 100 Tinder dates, and I had managed to land in his top 10. I never talked to him again. Met a girl online, talked it up, and while she seemed a bit immature, thought heck, why not? She casually mentioned she really liked pigs. What she meant to say was she was obsessed with pigs. Obsessed. Go to one of the best restaurants in the area for a first date. Bad idea. Sometimes pictures are from someone 10 years prior, or the person hides things, etc. But that wasn't the problem. She looked just like her pictures. But I didn't even have to have seen her first, because everything else gave it away. She came in a giant t-shirt that had a sparkly pink pig on it. Earrings? Pig earrings. Bracelets? Yep. Pig bracelets. I swear her dad might have been Homer Simpson. She had this headband on with a little pig on it. Her shoes? Yep. Pigs on the front of the toes. But best of all, she had a giant, or at least it seemed giant, pink purse with the face of a pig on it. You could not stop seeing it once you did. And I'm sure everyone else in this nicer, classier restaurant saw it too. I felt overdressed with her but underdressed with every other couple there. It was beyond embarrassing. For some reason which I have to convince myself was politeness not stupidity. We still had dinner, but Reddit. It was the fastest damn dinner I've ever had at a sit down place. I practically blurted out something about how oh, you really do like pigs. Which she started giggling, oinking, and going on about how everything she has is pig themed. Then she wouldn't stop, and it became the dominant part of the conversation. There were a dozen other things that made it a train wreck, but these were the clinchers to a solid 0/5 date. I remember afterwards consoling with a friend of a friend, because I had to tell someone, and then I promptly buried this as my worst date. TLDR. Girl was obsessed with pigs but ironically no porking at end. Internet date. At a bar. First time meeting the guy. He tells me over a bowl of eggplant chips that he's so good in bed that the last woman he boned spontaneously lactated from the mind-blowing pleasure of it all. I went on a date with a guy in my apartment block, only to see his disappointed face when my girlfriend called me on the way home. I realized he'd assumed I was gay and that I'd assumed he was just a friendly guy wanted to hang out. Got set up on a date with this pretty awkward guy. He picked me up in his car, which was sort of cool considering we were in high school, but oh my god, he was a nervous driver. So nervous in fact that he accidentally ran a red light, lost his it and ducked into a residential area to sit at the end of a cul-de-sac freaking out thinking the cops were coming. I tried to explain that if a cop had seen him we'd have already been pulled over, but dude was too freaked out. I don't even remember anything else about the date. Just that. It was uneventful and I never really talked to him again because we had nothing in common. Edit. Cult sax. Edit. We were in high school. He was a shy sort of awkward kid who I think if I remember correctly took me to his house because they were having a dinner party sort of thing. Big Filipino family dinner thing. It was his parents' car. I highly doubt his license was suspended, he was on drugs, had drugs in the car. The whole thing was really just a sweet innocent high school date, he just was a nervous driver. I've posted this before because it's so weird. I went for a meal with this girl I met through a dating app and it was going really well. We started talking about movies and then we decided to go to the cinema to go watch Inception. She said there was a cinema nearby but I didn't know the area at all. So I used the GPS on my phone and she held it and directed me. Once we got there we started walking inside and I realized I didn't have my phone in my pocket. I said I must have left it in the car and started to walk back to get it. She was trying to get me to leave it and saying we would miss the film, but the phone was only about a week old so I was really paranoid about it. We checked the car for about 10 minutes but we couldn't find it. I asked her to check her jacket and her bag but she said it wasn't there. A couple parked next to us, so I asked them to ring my number because I couldn't find it. It started to ring and it was obviously coming from my date's handbag. She took it out and said she must have missed it. I thanked the couple and locked my car, and as I turned back around she was walking the other way. I ran to catch up and asked what was going on, but she was very dismissive and was barely talking. That's when I realized it wasn't an accident and just left her to walk home alone. Wasn't my date, but I had gone home with a guy I had been seeing, and when we got there his roommate was curled in a ball on the couch looking pretty shaken. We asked him what was wrong and it took him a while to get it out, but he finally told us what happened. He took a girl home from the bar and they started drunkenly tearing each other's clothes off as soon as they got through his bedroom door. She said she was self-conscious though, so she wanted the lights off. He switched them off and they started fooling around. She starts going down on him when all of a sudden, the guy notices this horrible smell. He mentions it but she tells him to just ignore it. He's probably imagining things. Finally the smell is too much, so he switches the lights on. That's when he sees it. It all over her and all over the bed. He is completely dumbfounded. Doesn't know what to say or do, so apparently all he yelled was it. She grabbed all her clothes and ran out of the apartment crying without saying a word and, presumably, still covered in poop. He threw his bedding out, took an hour-long shower, and refused to go back into his room. Pretty much killed our night too. To this day I still wonder what on earth happened. Was she into it and was hoping he would be too? Was it an accident and she decided to just go with it? I don't know which scenario is more horrifying, to be honest. Hot girl from class randomly walked into my dorm room. The door was normally open during the day. She was in the building visiting a friend and saw me playing guitar, so she came in and started flirting. She asked me to meet her at a nearby bar that night at 10, so I agreed. I get there at 10 and she introduces me to her boyfriend. I finished my beer and went to the bar my friends were at. Edit. Awesome. Thanks for the gold. Edit 2. Yes, I misspelled bar, but at least I got it right the first time. Edit 3. She was definitely always flirting with me by touching my shoulder while talking and flipping her hair and always approaching me. Have had 3 separate dates with 3 separate women that all turned out to either be Christian Revival meetings or Young Life. Come on. I met a guy from OkCupid. The first time we met up in a public place and just had a casual chat. It wasn't a horrible date, but it wasn't very memorable either. I decided to give him another try because it could have just been nerves. The second date he invited me over to his place. I knew he lived with his parents, but I kind of assumed they'd be away. They weren't away. They kept coming into the lunch room and giving us iced tea and chips whilst he played Xbox in his track pants, no shirt, and I sat there awkwardly watching. He didn't really speak much to me. It was 11 PM, and he was in his 30s. TLDR. His mum and dad brought us drinks and snacks while I watched him play games without him really speaking to me. He was 34. Met a girl online. Decided that we should meet for a date. I'm female BTW. This sort of matters. I arrived in a strange town that I didn't know, so I relied on her to show me around. She took me to a youth LGBT group. I thought we were staying. Didn't mind. It's a bit odd, but I was newly out. Turns out it was just a chance for this girl to show off that she did, in fact, have a date. They didn't believe her apparently, and I existed. It was really awkward. When the youth group leader came in, she stood up, grabbed my hand and said later etches, and we walked out. Went to a bar for a drink, and then on for some food. It wasn't going well. She was very odd, but I was new to all this, and in a town I didn't know. Once we'd eaten she said, "Oh, I just need to see a mate who's staying at this hotel." Fine. Went to see this friend. Oh no. She'd booked a hotel room for us for the night. Yeah, I left pretty quickly after that. I may have been inexperienced, but I wasn't about to be tricked into a night in a rough hotel with an odd little lesbian. No thank you. The first time I ever used Tinder was also my worst experience with Tinder. The date itself was fine. A little stiff, but fine. Typical questions like what are you studying? Where did you grow up? etc. We ate dinner and I didn't plan on meeting up with him again. The next day I got a text from him saying, "Hey." I text him back, "Hi." He asks me what's up. I say not a whole lot, "What's up with you?" End up getting a huge paragraph back talking about his creative process for writing and trying to direct a specific type of porno where women crush rats and tarantulas between their breasts. What the duck? Got asked out by a girl I knew and was sort of interested in, but didn't really know all that well. We went to an open air jazz concert. Not really my thing, but sure. Once there she immediately was all over me, hugging, sitting on my lap, etc. Things were going great, or so I thought. It was at that point when things started getting weird. Several band members were giving us strange looks from stage while playing their jazz music. One piano player was mouthing things in our direction, but I couldn't make out what he wanted. People were rude to me for no reason whatsoever while getting drinks. Long story short, my date knew just about all the people there and wanted to get back publicly at her very large boyfriend for cheating on her. Don't hate on me, jazz ducks. I'm just an innocent sucker. Awkward ending. I met them both later that evening at the train station and she pretended not to see me. Tinder matched with a guy who was half an hour late for the date. The first thing he said to me was, "You're too tall." "You're taller than me. I'm 5 feet 5. Was wearing flats. Nowhere on his profile was his height listed. Never mentioned anything about it. He said he'd buy me a drink for being late, so I figured I'd get a beer out of it. We chatted for a bit about our jobs and school and whatever. I check the time and realize I have to catch my bus back home. I lived in the suburbs with my parents at this point. He says, "Okay, I'm coming with you." No. Well, I guess you can come back to my place. My roommate is there though. I'm not coming home with you. I made that clear long before we even met up. Bought you a drink. You owe me. What the hell? I owe you nothing. He puts on this super angry face and starts negging me. "You're not even that hot. I am not going to sleep with you. I'm going home." He just stalks off in the opposite direction. I get a message on Tinder later. "This isn't going to work out." "Oh, know it. Lol." Came across this dude on Bumble later. His profile pic was a pic of his abs. The secondary pic was him sexting with a girl. So you know I can make girls come. Mayo. Good luck, pal. Good luck. So I met this guy when I was in college in DC and he invited me go to on his motorcycle to his family's farm in rural Virginia. I told my best friend and she was appalled. He could be an axe murderer. You could come home in a dozen pickle jars. I poo-pooed her and went on the 2-hour ride out to the farm. We get there and take a walk up the mountain behind the farm. He's picking me wildflowers along the way. We're having a grand time watching the wild turkeys. As we're walking down, there's a fence with a tree growing next to it and I decide to swing myself over the fence like Tarzan. Unfortunately, there was a huge rock at my landing spot and I took a nasty tumble, spraining my ankle pretty badly. We limped back to the farmhouse, really a 2-room cottage, and got my boot off and it was immediately obvious I wouldn't be getting it back on. "So much for riding home that afternoon," he said. "We'll have to spend the night here and wait for the swelling to go down." I'm thinking, pickle jars. He rides to the local liquor to pick up some food, nothing in the house, and comes back with groceries and asks, "Guess what's for dinner?" "Chicken Kiev." I answered. It was the most unlikely thing I could think of at the time. His face fell. He had picked up the ingredients to make chicken Kiev. Thinking it would impress me, we should have known right then and there. We've now been married 31 years and have 2 kids. Second date. Went zorbing. Anyone who doesn't know what it is, you get strapped into a giant inflatable ball and roll down a hill. It was awful. The ball wasn't inflated properly so every rotation you hit the floor it hurt. It was wet so there was water inside the ball and we had to jump out at the bottom of the hill into a puddle so wet sock galore. The whole experience was horrible. Gave us something to talk about though. Been together nearly 4 years. This has happened twice to me. I'll be talking to a girl, and then I'll ask her out, specifically using the wording "we should go get a beer sometime," and they'll agree, and we'll go to a bar with a great selection of beer, and I'll order one, and at this moment they'll tell me they don't drink alcohol. Like, why wouldn't you have said it before? We'd have gone to a coffee place or an ice cream place or something, because now I feel stupid getting drunk while you're drinking peach juice. Senior year in high school. I dated a girl from Germany who was visiting relatives who were our neighbors in the USA. Her aunt and uncle, themselves originally from Germany, who prevailed upon my parents to get me to take her out. Problem was that although she was exceptionally pretty and seemed nice, she didn't speak English, and I didn't speak German. Surprisingly, that didn't stop us from having fun by expressing many thoughts with our hands and facial expressions. She taught me a few interesting German words and dating customs, and I imparted a few of my own before she took off for her return trip home. Matched on Tinder with a theater girl who was into cosplay and claimed to be a lesbian and wanted to try D. We met at a cafe. She said she had a girlfriend doing the same thing. Luckiest man alive, I'm thinking, right? We hit it off at local cafe. I take her to get Thai food. We go back to my place. We bang. In the middle of the mind-blowing 6 I realize that there is no ducking way in hell she could have these skills and still, technically speaking, be a virgin. Of course I still finished and then brought it up. I said, "First time, my ass." She said, "Nope, but it sure got you fired up." I shrugged, then gave her a high five. We went at it all night. Got completely blindsided and it was awesome. We are currently friends with benefits and she actually does have a girlfriend. They are both bi and like to duck guys in different scenarios. Not even mad. Never been with a girl who was legitimately pansexual. She ducks everything. I wore a condom. Went out with a customer from my work. I was a bartender, so I got hit on quite a bit. But this was the first time I'd actually gone out with someone. He took me to a bar near his apartment. The place was really dive-way and a little too hipster for my taste. But whatever. We were having a great time talking and enjoying some drinks, when I suddenly noticed the TVs behind the bar. Instead of playing sports or the news or something, they're playing old porn movies. I brought it to his attention, and he kinda just shrugged it off and said it was normal for this place. I actually thought it was pretty cool and this joint became one of my favorite bars, more for the cheap alcohol than the porn, but it was still a really strange place to bring someone on a first date. Edit. This was at Double Down Saloon in Nick's East Village. But apparently it's not super uncommon for bars to show porn in the background. When I was in HS, a college guy asked me out. We both didn't know what to do after dinner, so we drove around the neighborhood in his uncle's sports car just talking. Then the cops pulled us over because there were 3 calls of a car just driving around and around. First date I ever went on in year 8. A nice mousy girl asked me out. I nervously said yes and she said she would organize everything. Come that Saturday her mother picked me up without her daughter drove me to her house where she, the daughter, had prepared dinner for me. She went all the way. Entree, main, dessert and non-alcoholic wine. Top that all off with her father walking in every 10 minutes to get another drink. Stayed with her all through high school. My highest rated comment is about eating roast chicken breast and touching my first one too. I would like to thank 12 years old me and no one else. P. Probably one from about 5 years or so back. I had just moved to London and met this guy on a dating website. He was generally not my type. Still, I was fresh out of a long-term damaging relationship and trying to meet new people yada yada. Fast forward to the date. And he takes a call from a girl and he says to her, "Oh, I'm just in the pub with male roommate's name." I can hear her on the other end getting worked up about something and him telling her to calm down. Alarm bells already ringing. He hangs up the phone and says it was my fiance, but not a real one. Just one I'm with for her visa. At this point I'm already thinking bloody hell. He continued on with his excuse she also lives with me in his 2-bed apartment with this other roommate. Cozy. Oh yeah. I should probably tell you I'm getting married in 3 weeks. At this exact point, I just said, well, I'm going home and start pulling on my coat. His reply was even more classic. Do you want to help me buy groceries first? I was having surgery that day, so I told her from the start I was gonna need someone to drive me home after my surgery. I picked her up and we went to the duck pond to feed ducks. Then we went back to my house and chilled in the hot tub and one thing led to another. Ended up having sexy time. After that I had to go get my surgery. She sat in the waiting room for the 2 hours while I had my surgery. Post-op I was super high and I guess I requested her to come in. Apparently the doctor was there and I loud whispered to him, please don't tell her you're a doctor cause you make a lot more money than me. And I want to keep her. Next month is our 3-year anniversary. Edit. Girlfriend asked me to add in the part where I said, hey, come here, let me tell you a secret, and then kissed her on the cheek. I went on a date with a boy when I was about 16. Anyway, he was older. I lied about my age, and even though I literally looked 11, he still believed me. Super dumb of me, right? He was in his 20s. Let's get to drink. Yeah? Me being weird to tell the truth. I agreed. Flash forward and we're outside of the bar. It's our time to go inside and the bouncer checking ID asks me about mine. Oh, sorry, I must have left it at home, I defensively exclaimed. He knew I was bulleting. I did too. My date looks at me weird and he starts interrogating me. I literally cracked with embarrassment. I started sobbing, and at that point, I tried to run inside the bar like I actually had a chance. I even threw a tantrum, causing a huge scene. Way to show my true age. After, he looks at me with a blank expression and I honestly was crushed. We're in the car leaving at this point and it was nothing but silence until he was like, let's go somewhere age appropriate then. Age appropriate? I was shocked. He wasn't even mad at me. I didn't know what to do with myself. I just sat in the back of the car, mentally beaten. We drive for a while and I honestly thought I was going to get kidnapped. Then eventually, we pull up to a Chuck E. Cheese, and he leaves me there.